Hi YouTubers, welcome back to my channel, Vintage Fashion Hat Chat. I'm Norma Shephard, the director of the Mobile Millinery Museum and the author of 5 books on vintage fashion, including 1,000 hats. If you're new to the channel, the title gives it away. We talk about hats, particularly vintage hats, why they look the way they do, how they fit into women's history. We place them in social context, look at how they were made, who the great designers were, that sort of thing. Today I just want to have a little fun and show you a bit of a random haul and to give you an idea of why I cannot stop buying vintage hats. I'll talk about the one I'm wearing at the end, but I just want to get started with nice, lovely felt. And I've always said that every hat tells a story. And when I began doing retrospective millinery fashion shows a good 20 years ago now, it was a time when I could still interview a lot of the ladies from, who wore hats in the 40s, 50s, 60s. These dear ladies were still around, and we were presenting to a lot of them at retirement residences. Some of them would call us up and we'd visit their homes, and they would donate pieces along with the stories of maybe where they wore the hat, something special about it. I know I heard a few sad stories. They say that putting a hat on a bed, for example, is it's a superstition that it's bad luck, and I think it's based on some very real risks. A lot of parties, of course, back in the day, you would arrive at a party with your hat, with your coat. You'd lay them on the bed in the master bedroom. That is how it was done. And of course, you'd paw through the pile at the end of the night to take your own, outer garments home. But a few stories I've heard where the family dog might have gotten into that bedroom and had some fun destroying some hats. Of course, to a dog, there's probably a lot of really interesting smells. If it was a fur hat or a felt hat, they would have some nature smells, of course. Or they might want to, tear away at the feathers, or maybe it was just the texture of the hat. Those are things that kind of attract us to hats too, as humans. Anyway, so many sad stories of women going home without their expensive hat. Anyway, we preserve ours. We don't worry about that. That's not going to happen here at the Mobile Millinery Museum. But I just bring it up to tell you that there are so many stories about hats, and many of them are included in my book, 1,000 Hats. But of course, more recently, those grand ladies who wore those great fashions in the mid-20th century, they've passed on, and we only have their stories. But if you're a vintage fashion hound like I am, and you're finding some pieces that speak to you, and maybe you don't want to wear a vintage hat, but still the hat, it speaks to you. Maybe you want to bring it home, put it on a hat stand on your bureau. You know that it evokes an era for you. Maybe it's a memory of someone in your youth who you saw wearing a hat similar to that. It just brings back so many memories. One that sticks with me, a woman told me years ago at a show that I was doing that a hat that I had exhibited, she said as soon as she saw it, she remembered having her, I think it was her tonsils out. And when she came to from the anesthetic, her mother was standing over her. I guess she was still, in the hospital bed, or maybe the gurney in the hall, and she had just awakened, and her mother was standing over her. And she said her mother looked lovely. Her mother was wearing a pretty little hat. She was sort of dressed up, and the girl immediately knew that because her mother had taken the time to, to look so lovely in this fetching hat, she knew she was fine. She knew there was nothing to worry about, even though she had been a frightened little girl having the surgery. So I just love stories like that. But, we can make up our own stories. We find these hats, sometimes, they're, well, at least I used to find them at thrift stores, crushed in a bin under a bunch of old shoes. And I would feel a need to take them home, nurture them, and revitalize them. But, we can imagine, definitely from the old movies we see references that we can help date the hats, or maybe it reminds you of a hat or a story from a movie And yeah, it's a lot of fun. Also, hats can give us a bit of a story of our own. I wore a really fabulous hat one time to a wonderful party in Toronto. I didn't know a lot of the people there, but I felt very privileged to have been invited. And I wore this fabulous hat that created quite a stir. And someone posted on Facebook the next day, who was that woman? Simply because of the hat. So that's a lot of fun too. Anyway, so we can make up our own stories about the hats. But this first one kind of reminds me of Casablanca. It is wonderful beaver felt, very plain. Black, of course. Look at the veiling that has been draped around the brim, and the brim has a bit of a slope. It does have a chignon strap that is very stretched out, so we know that whoever enjoyed this hat wore it quite a bit. This elastic has lost all of its snap. It's a very well-made hat, and the label is Tombow, and it's made in Prague. It's circa 1940, and one of the things I like about it, which is probably not going to show up on camera, but I'll point to it anyway and we can hope for the best, are these running stitches that are all around the inner brim, and those are very subtle. You know, you don't really see those when the hat's being worn, and they're really practically invisible on the felt, and they were to secure the veiling. So it's a really fabulous piece. And of course, we're getting on to Halloween, and it's a great time to pick up a vintage hat if you just want to create a persona for a Halloween party, or maybe just to surprise the kids when they come to the door at home. Now here's an open crown. I've spoken of open crown hats before. There's really only two things you can do to vary the style of a hat. That is to change the crown or the brim, or to do without either. It almost looks like one of those frogs, the glass frogs that you used to put in a vase to put flowers in. But just picture that on blonde hair showing through the open crown would be lovely, or even red hair. And this deep pill box is velvet. There are some wonderful embellishments on this, some fabric, silk covered fabric beads. There is the why can't I think of the word? Yeah. Black, looks like Battenberg style lace surrounding this hat. There are some faceted black beads. Yeah, so a lot of handwork went into making this hat. And wouldn't that be stunning? Maybe to church Christmas Eve, or to a party. Just wonderful, wonderful texture. And great style. And of course, in the 60s, pillboxes were all the rage. Whether they were deep or shallow, didn't matter. Now this one is similar. This is also from the 1960s, and it's also a very dressy pillbox. This one is formed from a satin base. The brim is not quite as deep as the one I've just shown you, but this is very similar. You see how this cord is stitched around in this curly Q pattern. Very similar. I actually think this one might be closer to 1970. This is probably late 1960s. And of course, all that Russian cording was quite popular in the 70s. But we also have the faceted beads on this. And they're sitting between pairs of large black sequins that gives them some extra sparkle. A little top knot, more texture with the braiding. Just adorable. Just adorable. And we have no label in this one either, but it certainly looks, oh, it looks like the label has been removed. Interesting. Don't know why that is. So, oh my. So while we're talking of texture, here is another wonderful late 1960s, early 1970s hat. This one is leather. Just look at how fabulous that is. And it slopes at the back and is trimmed with very wide black grosgrain ribbon. It's also banded in the black grosgrain, which has been folded, and it's been folded over some more banding with white leather. And close up I can see lots of crinkling of the white leather, so lots of texture in this one. And then of course we have the folded white leather band over the trapunto stitched black band. Inside, Création Madeleine. So even by looking at the label, you can see that it's secured to a very wide grosgrain piece of ribbon, and this is quite typical of large, bold labels of the 1960s. Just love it. Just love it. One more before I talk about the one I'm wearing. This one is, oh, love it, love it, love it. Late 1940s, bandeau style, but it's a double bow of straw, a really sort of striated natural straw double bow, straw knot, and then of course we have the veiling. This is just so fabulous. I'll just sort of pretend I'm going to wear this. Interestingly enough, this one, I do have a hat quite similar to this, and it may have been patterned after this, but it's much smaller, more modern, and has some rhinestones. The one that I have, the contemporary one, is by Maria Curcic. But this one, the label is Maria Pia. Oh gee, I don't think you can see the gold writing. But it says Maria Pia. Oh, there, wait a minute, it's catching it now. Maria Pia, New York. And of course, there are a few little condition issues with the veiling, which is often the case, but the veiling itself is a very coarse veiling, and it is designed in a spider web pattern. And you know what would be really fun? Of course, we can find those little plastic spiders now, or even little silver spider pins. All the Halloween jewelry is available now. I think it would be so much fun. In fact, I think I'm going to do that, to find a little spider pin to put in this veiling. Yeah, fun. Okay, so the one I'm wearing is textured again. This is a shallow pillbox, probably from the I would say late 1950s. This is really circa 1960. Might have been worn at the back of the crown, as so many of them were at the time, but I like it tilted to the side. And this one is an open crown again, covered with some fine veiling. There is no label to this hat, but this was very beautifully made. You can see the crinkle in the genuine black leather, and the contrast with the white velvet. A terrific dressy winter hat, just so beautiful, and would have, you know, taken some ingenuity and some skill to create this hat. This would have been a pricey hat. So there you have it. I'm very excited by all of these hats. Let me see. Let me just try this one, and I will think about which is the front. Okay, so Maria Pia. There, isn't that fun? So if you care to comment, please tell me where I should put the spider pin when I get it, and I will be happy to take your advice. Hope you're all having a happy day. If you've enjoyed this content, please hit like, share, subscribe so others can find us. And this is Thursday. I will see you Monday. Bye.